Did you know that between 2021 and 2023, 428,000 tech employees were laid off across more than 2,200 companies? And as of July 2024, nearly 100,000 employees have been laid off across 347 companies in tech, with companies having layoffs almost daily, and almost all economic data are pointing to a recession coming soon, such as the yield curve, which when inverted, usually is followed by a recession, and has accurately predicted every recession in the past 100 years. Not to mention the current federal funds rate, which is sky high right now. And historically, when the Fed has cut rates, it's usually followed with a recession. There's a reason why companies are cutting costs. With the level of uncertainty, fear, and doubt in the tech industry, it's at an all-time high right now. Now let's add you finding a new job in the middle of this insanity while working a full-time job, or even worse, if you were laid off. Dealing with the emotions of interviewing combined with competing against top talent who are also applying due to layoffs, combined with a decreased headcount for companies, extreme selection bias, not getting responses or getting ghosted, and finally getting so invested in companies only to get a generic automated rejection email. If that sounds familiar to you, you're not alone. I've heard countless stories of people getting rejected, ghosted, and dealing with interview depression. The reality is that there's an off balance between supply and demand right now. The number of candidates applying for jobs right now is far greater than the number of open positions available. If life was a game, then we're currently on difficulty mode in our careers. But there are some secret ways to help you set yourself apart from everyone else. In this video, I'll share with you top tips to land more interviews regardless of your background or seniority level. In 2023, the tips mentioned in this video allowed me to get over 50 interviews within a 2-month time frame at top tech companies. That's a 70% interview rate. You're probably like, no shit, he got so many interviews. He has over 10 years of experience. I'm over here just starting off in my career, or I just got laid off, or I might be in a different country altogether. The reality is that there will always be factors at play, especially during tough economic times, such as your seniority levels, as companies try to hire the classic 10x employee who doesn't need much guidance and can yield high results without any guidance. However, lots of companies will always hire new grads or people from other countries due to cost cuttings and other reasons. You have a giant pool of people competing for the same role, and the tips and advice in this video, regardless of your seniority level, will still apply and only increase your chances of landing a dream job. This video will cover the following topics at a high level. First, we'll talk about building a killer resume that will make you stand out. Next, we'll talk about how you can build a killer portfolio website. Then, I'll share some top tips you can use to get more interviews. And lastly, I'll share with you a secret tip that I've personally used that helped me get a lot of interviews, even during turbulent economic periods. So sit back, grab a drink, smash that like and subscribe button for more videos like this, and let's get started. First, let's talk about building a killer resume. Your resume is your entryway into getting interviews. However, most people get this part wrong. I'll be creating a separate video on how to write a killer resume, as there's a lot of topics to cover here, but for now, let's focus on the top 3 things you can do today to make your resume stand out. Number 1, keep it to 1 page max. Unless you have over 10 years of experience, even then I'd argue that you should still keep it to 1 page. Always try to keep your resume to a maximum of 1 page. Hiring managers don't have time to sift through multiple pages of resumes, and frankly, it just looks like you're overcompensating your work. In your resume, highlight the most important details about your experience and skills. If you've recently graduated or have limited professional experience, highlight your internships or volunteer work or extracurricular activities. Describe how those experiences have prepared you for the new position that you're applying for. Remember, keep things simple and concise and down to 1 page max. Number 2, don't include a resume objective. Your resume objective is a brief statement about what you hope to achieve in your career. Instead of writing a flat objective, summarize your background, your achievements, and your passions. Here's an example of a bad objective. Objective: seeking a position as a front-end developer where I can work on exciting projects and be part of a dynamic team. Looking for an opportunity to grow my career in web development in a company that values creativity, innovation, and professional growth. Interested in a role that allows me to explore new technologies and contribute to the development of user-friendly applications. Eager to find a company that offers a collaborative environment and opportunities for continuous learning and advancement. There are several things to call out here which could greatly improve your objective. First and foremost, keep things short. Your objective should be no longer than 1 to 2 sentences and should be focusing on 1, your professional summary, but 2, what you bring to the table and what you can do to better the company that you're going to be working for. Here's how you can improve it. Objective: Front-end developer with 2 years of experience in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, dedicated to building user-centric web applications and delivering creative solutions, committed to continuous learning and leveraging data to achieve impactful results in a dynamic team environment. As you can see from the example above, we removed the fluff, focused on our professional experience, and finally focused on how you can better the company that you're wanting to work for. With the resume out of the way, let's move on to point 3, focus on the impact of your work. Instead of just listing out what you've done in the past, rephrase it in a way that highlights the impact of the work that you've done. For example, instead of saying something like, created coding question unit tests using Jest testing library on front-end lead, you can rephrase it while showing the impact. So you can say something instead like, created coding question unit tests using Jest testing library, which resulted in a 40% lift in problem completion rate on front-end lead. Remember, it's not really what you do, but how you improve the top-line metrics. Now, this may not apply to every technical problem, and you may not be able to quantify the impact of your work by a specific metric. In those cases, try to highlight the complexity of your work and how it improved the engineering processes. As a side note, I'm considering adding a feature on my platform, frontendlead.com, for paid resume review. Comment below if that's something you'd be interested in. Now let's move on to the 4th point, which is the cover letter itself. This one is a bit controversial. I've heard some recruiters completely ignore the cover letters, others care about it. In my experience, recruiters tend to ignore it more if you have more credibility or more seniority level. But if you're earlier in your career or you might be a senior engineer, I still recommend having a cover letter. I recommend no more than 2 to 3 paragraphs for your cover letter. If it's an engineering role, perhaps you rephrase 1 or 2 sentences in your cover letter to be specific for the company that you're interviewing for. If not, you may need to adjust the entire paragraph. However, I don't recommend spending too much time here. Focus on introducing yourself and expressing your interest in the company that you'd like to work for and why you'd be an excellent asset for them. Now, let's move on to the next section, which is your portfolio website. If you're a front-end engineer, designer, or even a product manager, I highly recommend and encourage you to build a portfolio website. It's a great way to stand out from your peers. Showcase your past projects, your bio, and your resume. If you're a backend or ML engineer, it's still good to have a portfolio website or at least a Medium blog where you can share your technical artifacts. Focus on 4 main pages on your portfolio website. For your projects page, display a list of your past projects with a sentence explaining the project at hand and links so they can view it. If you're a product manager or a designer, then focus more on the writing/backstory portion of things. The next page you should have on your portfolio website is an about page where you can summarize your professional background and achievements. Focus on showing how your work has positively impacted the companies that you've worked for by highlighting key metrics that you've contributed to improving. Feel free to also include some personal details about yourself, such as your hobbies, your passions, or what you just like to do on a daily basis. The next page you should have on your website is a resume page. This one should be pretty self-explanatory, but just leave a PDF version of your resume for quick access. Finally, you should also have a contact page. Again, keep it simple. Just have a way for people to reach out to you, perhaps just a simple email link. Having a solid portfolio can really help you stand apart from the crowd and increase your chances to land an interview. Now the fun part. Let's discuss some tips on getting more interviews. Number 1, create a spreadsheet with a list of companies that you'd love to work for. Rank the companies that you'd like to work for at the top. Now that you have a list of companies that you'd like to work for, the next tip would be the most obvious, which would be apply, apply, apply. I know that sounds obvious enough, but don't sleep on applying for jobs. The more you apply, the higher your chances are for obtaining interviews. Try to set a goal to apply to at least 20 jobs a day, if not more. One way to apply really quickly is to use LinkedIn's one-click apply to jobs button that you can also filter by. Get those out of the way first because those are super quick. Also, don't just apply on only one platform. Utilize all of them. Start with LinkedIn, then use Indeed, and then use others. And the third tip is probably the most important one in this market is to get referrals. In this competitive market, one of the best ways to get interviews is through referrals. Go through your LinkedIn network, find people who work for the companies that you'd love to work for, and reach out to them for a referral. The worst that they can say is no. This gets easier the longer you are in your career because you've developed more relationships, but the younger you are, the more difficult it becomes. Nonetheless, you'll miss 100% of shots that you don't take, so shoot your shot and try to get your referrals. You can even consider contacting people that you might not be directly connected to by requesting a referral. Pro tip, don't just flat out ask for a referral. Explain why you're worth referring and show that you are a serious candidate worth referring. Share your social proof, perhaps your educational backgrounds, perhaps you went to a similar school or have similar interests. To be honest, if you really want the referral, you can even offer a cash incentive for someone willing to refer you. I can tell you personally how many people have asked me for a referral and how many times I've said no because I've personally been burned in the past, only for them not to even respond to the recruiter when they've been contacted. This ends up making the person who's referring you look bad. so only ask for a referral if you feel like you're a serious candidate and you're really qualified for that role. Another tip here is to consider managing the hiring manager directly. I can tell you from personal experience, when I'm really passionate about a company, I just hit the manager up directly on LinkedIn, expressing my interest in the role, and usually get a response. Finally, take advantage of community-based platforms like the Blind app or Front-End Lead discussion board. I've personally had a lot of success finding posts on Blind where others are asking for referrals. When someone replies to someone else that they're willing to refer them, you can just shoot them a DM and ask for a referral too. Now it's the moment you've been waiting for. Finally, let's talk about the secret tip that can land you a lot more interviews. The secret tip is to apply everywhere in the US, even if they ask you to be in person. You might be asking yourself, why would I apply somewhere where I don't even want to relocate to? You are right, you probably don't want to relocate there, but it still doesn't hurt to apply. Expanding your region from where you're applying increases your chances of getting more interviews. But what if they ask if I'm willing to relocate? You should say that you're possibly open to relocating. Doesn't mean you actually will. Look, the reality is that it's expensive hiring someone. From creating a job posting, to paying for recruiters, to paying for employees conducting the interviews, to creating a sponsored post, it can easily add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars just to hire one person. Once a company is invested in you and you've passed all their rounds, plus if you have competing offers, you have a lot of leverage to negotiate with and try to convince them to let you be remote. The worst case scenario is that you'd have to say no and leave the offer behind. But the best case scenario is you walk away with a job, so it doesn't hurt to try. Well, that's all the tips and advice I have for now on how you can land more offers. If you found this video helpful, consider smashing the like button and subscribing to my channel. That really encourages me to produce more high quality content like this. Please also leave a comment if you'd like me to cover a specific topic for a future video. Till next time, peace!